This video is about how I took this 1970s bathroom with terrible 3/4 inch MDF paneling on the ceiling and made a beautiful, modern space with custom cabinetry and hand-laid tiles. I have one really decent day of weather coming up for me to work on quartz for here and a little bit left in the kitchen. So today is about clearing this thing out, rebuilding a new one, and getting it ready for templating so that I can template it later and tomorrow do all my quartz work. So complete demo and replacement of a bathroom vanity in one day. This should be fun. This should go downstairs. I should point out that this isn't just a vanity install. This is a custom vanity build and install. Dropping a store-bought vanity in wouldn't take much time at all. Okay, now this one might just get chopped and then fern coat. Well, save this for comparing threads. You guys hear me rave about this red plastic masking tape a whole lot. One of my favorite uses for it is covering up plumbing, because this is old copper, which means that the standard caps won't fit, and even worse, this one is copper with a soldered on threaded end that I might or might not have to take off, but I don't want to take it off now because I got other things to do. So I can just cover it up with this plastic masking tape and we're good to keep going. One of the things about channel locks that I don't see anyone ever talk about is you can basically use them as a ratchet if you're a little bit careful and you're going in the right direction. When I'm going back, I'm just loosening the grip slightly. And if my aim was not so bad right now, we can see that you can basically turn it into a ratchet. And it usually doesn't take too much thought. Piece by piece demo is the easiest way that I know of for one person to get cabinets out. When I was taking these screws out, I got 3 screws here. I could tell that they were all in studs by how the driver had to actually work to get them out. Usually, if they're in a stud, you'll get some impact. If they're not in a stud, they'll just spin. And because of this issue here, these guys were searching for 3 times. This one they got, this one they got. But I want to make sure I mark where the stud was. And we're not going to assume that this drywall screw was a stud because drywallers are just the worst. So if you ever run into an issue where you're taking out an old cabinet, take the opportunity and mark where your studs are. Imagine, if you will, instead of the sink being off to the side and having a little bank of drawers here, you have a little bank of drawers, a sink in the middle, imagine that, and then another little bank of drawers here. My main concern with that is if I have the bank of drawers here, how close do the drawers get when they open to the toilet? So we're gonna build first one bank of drawers with at least one drawer in it, bring it up, and we can see how much of a backer in behind we get to build out. The cabinets I'm using are only 15 inches deep, and this space is supposed to be about 21 on the countertop. So I might need to do like a 6-inch spacer in the back, but that will also be dependent on the spacing of the drawers to the toilet. All right, let's see how this will fit with the toilet. I'll put a couple of foot boxes under. So if we do a 5-inch backer, so then 3/4 here, and then we have 3/4 to the edge of the front. And that should be plenty of space for the 3 drawers. We're good. We can make a 5-inch backer. Everything is awesome. So if that's the bottom, then we gotta pull all these tiles. Well, we can pull this row too. Life is easier when you don't live in a renovation and can do a full demolition to start with. Looks like Jeff from Renovision installed these tiles, leaving the spacers in. Don't leave the spacers in. This is the math for my backer. See my video about not using CAD to appreciate why being able to do this on the fly with paper is better. Linked below. Get one in here. It's not quite perfect, but it's certainly good enough. And then this one, still good enough. Okay. Back is in, supports are in.
This was a harder build than expected because of the added depth needed for the sink and the faucet.
That'll be close. Those pipes will be close too. We're gonna have to chop out a hole there. Well, I've finally gotten this thing braced off the wall, attached to the brace, which is attached to the wall, attached to each other, relatively leveled, and I can finally do what I've been trying to do the whole day, which is build a template for the quartz work that I have to do tomorrow with my one good day of good weather.
See my quartz fabrication video for info about how I template countertops.
I think it works better in white. I think brown would have been the wrong choice. All right, so this bar comes off. Let's check our width here, 18 and 5. Yeah, so we're gonna go right to the edge of those, which means we're basically gonna go to this thing and then go down 9 inches. Let's go get a new blade because I want to make a high quality cut, and not because I'm stalling and going slow because I don't have a lot more content planned for today.
Sometimes you only have so much planned for the day and Twitch chat gets mad at you when you only stream for like 2 hours at a time.
Okay, we might actually take this side out wider, and then how far farther down, how farther do we have to go? So that's to the top of the pipe. So we'll go another 9 inches down. I'm just guessing, I'm not actually doing math here. But I know we want about that much for hand access to the shutoff. That went fairly easily. Fernco FTW. At this point, this goes on. We'll get a cap from outside, and I have to go buy some more 1.5-inch pipe.
Quartz dust is cancer dust, so try to use some collection when you're drilling into it.
There we go. I don't mind twists as long as it's not kinked. Oh, that's lovely. Well, I think we have a working faucet. All right, so this is supposed to provide instant adhesion, and it's supposed to hold like 600 pounds. So we're gonna try to squish it into place, see if it'll behave.
A lot of people would use supports from below or some wired contraption on top. I'm testing to see if Sink Fit does what it claims. It does.
Squishy, squishy, squish. Yeah, we're not gonna get really much more compression than that. So maybe we can just rely on the glue to hold the sink up. The main thing I'm going to have to be careful with is how much it'll move, because as I'm working on plumbing, it's definitely going to scoot around a bit, so I have to make sure before I finish attaching everything and leave it alone for overnight that it's in the right spot.
I still need to make a proper how to plumb your sink video. Until then, P-trap, slope, and venting.
I don't see any leaks. I took a bit of a poke at this ceiling a little while ago, and we got a little bit of it off, but mostly not very much. And since then, I've been letting it kind of get soaked with the moisture, having too long of showers, and all that sort of fun stuff. So we're going to come back with a couple of scraping tools. I know some of it, especially over the shower in the tub, is much more loosened up. Let's see if we can get anything else just scraped off, and then we'll come back with a sander. So in case you're wondering why am I bothering scraping it at all when I'm still going to come back and sand it, it's because if I can get these bigger chunks off all at once, that's a whole lot of dust that's not going in the air. That feels pretty smooth. I think the disc is just ground to dust, basically. I do get the feeling it should be a little bit more aggressive than that, and I was pushing pretty good on it too. So I think I'll pick up some replacement discs and see if we can get that to work a bit better. When you want to take a shower out, you don't start hacking at the middle. You find where the joints are, here and here, especially at the top, especially in the corners, and you want as much as possible to remove an entire piece of drywall at once.
Okay.
You don't be taking it out of the middle because then you have way more mess to clean up.
Gotcha.
Okay, so we've got a break going up this way.
Yeah.
Which means when this comes out, that could fall straight down. It's been a bit of an interesting demo, but we have gotten the main bathtub walls off. We're gonna do a big old cleanup, get everything refreshed and all the chunks out. Then we can take this out because we gotta come back more this way. Is it off? They're off?
They're off. Yeah. Next ones are off.
That's it.
Yay.
It's a little slow, but it's getting it way down. Like that's all the way down and out.
I don't remember if this came from Twitch chat or from TikTok, but this works amazingly well for soldering vertical pipes. If you're soldering inside of a wall, just get a little piece of sheet metal that you can put in behind where your flame points.
When you have the valve there,
Yeah,
is there enough room for them to be turned and still...
we got these.
Okay, that's what I was asking.
I start by wrapping a bunch of tape on the end of a pen so I can get it around the threaded portions of the valve a lot easier.
I think we will be quite safe at that distance. It's not exactly flush with the front of the tile, but it's within about 1/8. So we are pretty good. Oh, good job, Moose.
Every single DIY YouTuber should have a collated drywall gun. Someone please explain why they don't. They're not expensive.
Managed to get pretty far yesterday with getting all the stuff off and then getting new board on and even getting most of the plumbing in. But I ran out of PEX clamps, so I need to get the old ones off and get the new ones on. One of them failed. One of them I had to cut and move the valve up. And so we're going to deal with that first. We also have to move this bit of strapping because I can't get in here to tighten that one, but we can get in for that one. We're going to clean up this corner a little bit before we try to get the new drywall on. Hopefully by the end of the day, we'll have all the drywall up, all the drywall taped, which means we're going to have to sand those 3 ceiling corners as well, which is going to be just the most fun. Four and 3/4, so we'll say that that's 5-inch.
Measuring for drywall isn't always as easy as just putting it in place and then cutting it.
Everyone has seen on all the YouTube shorts and the TikToks that you set up your drywall square, you put your hand on it, you put your foot on it, and then you run your knife. What they don't tell you is because of the factory edge of the sheets that bevel, if you push on the top and the bottom, your square will bow out. So make sure you push a little bit low from the top and put your toe a little bit up from the bottom. Strongest man on Twitch. I'm about to do some manly tool stuff.
If you know, you know. If you don't know, working overhead for a long time can really burn out your shoulders. That's why this is manly tool stuff, because it's not just tools, it's tools that require a lot of muscle and a lot of endurance. If you require endurance and muscle, or muscle and endurance, you're doing pretty manly things. I'm taping the edges of my tub so I can be a little bit less super careful when I apply the redgard. Redgard application is crazy easy. Brush it into the corners and around details like valves and spouts. Then roll it anywhere else. Pay a little attention to whatever chunks might have gotten into it and make sure you do 2 coats. Just like that, your shower is waterproof.
Measuring from my laser line down to the tub and up to the ceiling is telling me that I don't have a rectangle. I've got like a trapezoid, except it's kind of more like this. To check that, I'm gonna draw a line here, basically right on the laser. And I'm gonna do another one over here. And then I'm gonna spin my laser around 180 degrees. So it's level this way. I have a little bit of a pitch going this way. And that little bit of a pitch over 5 feet is less than a 32nd. So it is in fact my walls that are crooked. Right now, this laser line down is not the same distance. We go here, we get 23 and 7. And we go over here, we get 23 and 14. So we're about 3/8 difference, left to right. Now, if we did lower, if we started it at the lowest point, then the entire first row gets cuts.
This little block ensures that my ledger boards are perfectly in line. I use ledgers and start with the second row when the first row needs a lot of cutting.
I think we are ready to tile. Got the shower all prepped, got my ledger board up, we are ready to tile.
I'm a big fan lately of vertical tile layouts. They take more work because you need to check that they're plumb every couple of tiles, but I think they add a lot to the appearance of height, as well as making it look just a little bit unique without going into weird territory.
When you're tiling up to a ceiling, a lot of the time the mud that holds the tape that holds the wall to the ceiling on for the drywall creates a bit of a curve. And for these tiles, I was getting a little bit of contact at the top and a little bit at the bottom, but nothing in the middle. And you can kind of see in here, but the camera's not going to pick it up, that I just like a little bit here, nothing. So I'm going to start troweling in a little bit of extra thin set in the middle, and that'll get me all the coverage I could possibly want. The plan for today, because I want to try to get all the rest of the tiling done. We got that done, we didn't get this done because the gray material didn't go as far as the white material, so I got some more of the white material for the thin set. So the first thing I want to do is actually the row across this side. And the idea there is that I want to be able to pull off the ledger after I'm done everything else and then do the bottom row. So if I can get that first row done of tiles on this wall, then hopefully by the time I finish up here and then finish all the way up there, we can come back, pull off at least this one and this one, because these will be nice and on there. And then by the time I'm done along here, I'm hoping I can get these off and not have these guys, this first row, fall down.
Angle grinders are better than miter saws for cutting aluminum tile trim. Aluminum.
Now we're gonna back angle this a little bit. But having this up in like perfect position, maybe taped to a piece of trim, would make placing the tiles a little easier. One of the things all the tile talkers and YouTubers never talk about is that tile comes shipped with usually hot glue, sometimes wax, sometimes stringy plastic of some sort between the tiles that you always gotta rub off before you put it on the wall. So when you see a YouTuber or a TikToker and you don't see them doing any of this stuff, you know they're hiding steps. Got that row done. I'm not super thrilled about how big this is, but it's gonna get grouted and no one's gonna care. It is what it is. This means that I can come back up over here, finish this area off. I was just asked a question in Twitch chat, why do I put my mark and then mark under it? When I put this right up, I try to put the mark exactly on the edge of the other tile. So then when I come back to cut it, I don't want it to be like a friction fit in here. I want about 1/8 here and about 1/8 up here. So I kind of eyeball my way down an extra 1/4 inch so that when I actually do the cut around on the line, then I'll get about the 1/8 of an inch I want in both directions. So here's the result of the cut I just did. It's a pretty good bit of spacing at the bottom and at the top, and I totally didn't cheat that. With the next row on this wall, now that I've gotten this wall done all the way to the ceiling, I'm gonna be starting on the left side, because this left side I've been able to define as about as perfectly plumb as you're gonna get in a tile job. Which means if this wall is tilted in, I don't know if it is, but if it is, that's the worst case scenario. I can start shaving tiles here, rather than if it's tilted in, have them start creeping out this way, which would be also much, much worse. If the wall's tilted out, I get a bit of a thicker grout line at the top and no one will care or notice. So we're gonna start at this side. I'm gonna make sure I get some thin set under here, and we're gonna go across this way. I love this little saw.
That's a $370 Mastercraft tile saw from Canadian Tire. By far the best tile saw that I've ever used. Better than even DeWalt's $1,800 saw. Rail tile saws are the best design.
I have to do this mark and cut for all of these because the tub is neither level nor flat. So if I want it to come out reasonably decently, they all have to get fairly fussed. We got our tiling finished yesterday, which means that we are grouting today. And before we can do any grouting, we got to take all the spacers out and all the tape out. We're going to start with the back because that's where my time-lapse camera is pointed. When we do the sides, we'll move that a little bit. I'm using Fusion Pro single component grout, stain proof and color perfect. So like what you see here is the color that it be when it cure. And I say cure because it's more of an epoxy than a concrete that has to dry. It's never needs sealing. You put it on, you wipe it off, you're done. You let it dry, you're good to go. I really like this stuff. If you have tiling to do of any amount, they do come in smaller buckets as well. This big bucket is very expensive, but I get to use this for my kitchen and my bathroom, so it works out pretty nicely. And life is a lot easier if you moisten the area you're going to be applying to first, because stuff slides better over wetness. Make sure you keep around like a 2x4 or a 1x whatever, just like a small little trowel so you can scoop out manageable amounts of this. It can be quite difficult to scoop out with your grout pusher trowel, whatever this rubbery thing is called. And then in between, I like to just sit the lid back on and try to make sure that it doesn't dry out too much. Should be recording this for prosperity. And no, I don't mean posterity, I mean prosperity. I want to make money. I should be able to get an extra quarter turn. One and a half to 2 1/4. Chamfer Andy Burr. All right, let's try this now. Finding that set screw is a little awkward. So right now I'm just trying to like really squeeze the caulk into the grout. Well, I can get about the same look without it, but it's a lot more frustrating. I don't know if this is taking more time or less time, but it's absolutely removing frustration. This is just fuss.
Aside from new sanding discs, I also wanted to change the position of the sander. It was originally set up for wall sanding, so very awkward for overhead work. By adjusting the pivot point, I was able to make it much easier to work on the ceilings with.
So after a couple of minutes of this, I can tell that I can get it way flatter without getting like totally flat. And I think the plan for today is going to be get it to about this position here, where it's like 90% flat, all the high points are taken off. And the goal would be to then come back to skim coat it, fill in anywhere where the whole thing is just flaked off. Skim coat it roughly smooth, do a quick sand on it so there's no big lumps or whatever, and then re-popcorn it. But it's still a fair bit of work. So fun times for Moose. One thing I did figure out is instead of wearing gloves to keep my hands protected, the friction from a bit of sweat on my hand to the metal actually helps a lot in reducing how hard I have to grip it. With the gloves, it can slide fairly easily, and that means I have to grip it a lot harder. But here, I can be fairly loose, and it can stay in positions. To give you an idea of what the sanding is doing, here's scraping over unsanded stuff. And here it is over where I sanded. So it's doing stuff, it's just slow and difficult. So that should get me basically all the way into the corners.
Like it's all fairly flat-ish. Nailed it. Okay, that's a bit of a weird one for me, but whatever. All right, so we definitely have cable we can get over there. The construction gods have absolutely smiled upon me today. I was able to move this pan from here over to here and still get 2 solid screws into absolutely rock solid blocking in it. Very lucky. And I was able to take the plug that came from cutting this hole with the hole saw and put it in over here.
Then after all that, I was finally able to put a first coat of mud on the ceiling.
I got a lot done yesterday. We got this sanded, we got a first coat on. You can tell it's pretty clearly not like smooth yet. We also got the electrical moved and the patch done. We got some taping recovered. We got taping in over here. We got some taping in here. We're gonna start today with getting these scraped off, make sure that it's ready to take some primer, and then we'll primer it. And then we might start looking at doing a quick sand on the ceiling and doing another coat on that. I also want to make sure we get another coat over this so that it'll look good, and get another coat over this so that that'll look good.
I did another coat, and then this is the final sanding. I used the light to make sure I wasn't leaving any nasty lines that needed fixing later. This mud is tinted yellow so I can see where I'm putting touch-up patches on. White on white can be hard to see, so yellow on white makes everything very clear. Then sanding, and then priming. Here's another lead toilet drain that should have been soldered to the brass flange.
Like, it looks like someone started with the right idea and then gave up on the execution. And I'll see what I can do about getting a screw into some of these fastening holes. The other part of the extra ring on. Now we'll definitely get squished. Masks make it hard to breathe.
Just for the record, the yellow you see behind the lid is sanded yellow drywall.
There we go. Definite squish that time.
I made a template with some scrap flooring for the mirror hanging locations. This made things a lot easier, and honestly, I should have thought of it before.
So that looks like it'll do. It feels like it's pretty solid. That feels like it's on. We're fairly level, maybe off by about 1 millimeter. I think we're good. And I really like this shape for this bathroom for some reason. I haven't figured out why yet, but I do really like it. Well, it'll get cleaner later. I think that really works. What do you guys think? We can get this back in and maybe wipe the ceiling a little bit because I got some grubby on it.
Here I'm just leaning up a little decorative shelf. I ended up putting another in the corner as well.
One of the things that I'm doing today is getting ready to paint my bathtub, hopefully. And the first step is going to be priming it, but the 0 step is going to be masking everything off. So, what I'm doing right now is pre-masking, and that just means getting the lines as perfect as I can, or as I care to, and then later I can come along with the actual masking plastic and get everything fully covered up. But it's way easier for me to fuss the details of where am I cutting my lines here when I'm not encumbered by paper and plastic. So I'm doing this just with tape first. So now that I'm putting the paper on, I don't really have to worry about where I'm placing the bottom tape to keep things covered. As long as I'm getting contact with the tape below, that's all I care about at this point. This is, I think, about the bare minimum that I would ever do for coating a bathtub, for taping a bathtub before I'm about to prime it. I'm using a spray primer instead of a pour or anything like that, so sprays get everywhere. And I've got slate here, I've got finished here, I got nice here, and good over there, and I don't want any of that stuff to get covered with any amount of overspray or settle or anything. So I've covered everything, and now I get to go suit up with my fancy new organic filters on my respirator, and my full suit, and my eye stuff, and my face stuff, and then we get to try to prime this tub.
Okay, so you can do 2 coats right away, basically.
I'm leaving this process in with a little more time lapse and detail because if you want to redo your tub, this is, well, it's a way to do it. I don't really recommend because the spray is super toxic and you're likely going to be living in the house when you do it. But after letting this dry and cure, I've moved back in and the paint is holding up just fine. So I don't recommend it, but it does work. It requires a lot more sanding prep than you'd think, and I do go back later to do some more.
Okay, first thing I want to do in here today, now that the primer's all in and pretty solid, it feels a bit rough, so I'm going to run over it with some 400. This is the only format of 400 I have here. I'm going to be super gentle with it because I don't actually want to remove anything, I just want to fuss up the surface a bit. But I also know that there's like a bunch of loose stuff in the bottom that just kind of floated down from other areas. So I want to clean all that up before I get to spraying as well.
The gray spray was an etching primer and I used 2 light coats to get the tub fully covered. After this light sanding, I made sure to vacuum and wipe every little bit of dust off before going back to spray with the color. Then I used several coats of matte paint. I could still clean it up and go back over with a top coat to make it look shiny, but I actually prefer the matte look. Check out the car restoration YouTubers for more detail because this was actually automotive paint. All spray paints benefit from sanding between coats, even residential trim and door paint, so don't skip the sanding. Here's where I realized I didn't do enough sanding during the prep work and had to go back at it again. I actually had to do a lot of re-sanding, so when I say at the start, do a really good job with your sanding, I mean do a really good job. If you can feel something, you're going to end up seeing it. So trust your hands to see if you've finished sanding properly, not your eyes.